So if you've ever tried to take a self-portrait, you've probably quite quickly realized that it's not an easy process. First, you gotta set up your tripod, figure out your composition and your lighting and your exposure. Then you gotta focus on something, so you put a camera backpack out there to focus on. Then you gotta hit the shutter button, run out quickly to that spot, stand very still to make sure that the focus hits. And once you've done that, you gotta come back to your camera, review it, and do it all over again. Really, it's a very slow and inefficient process. And even with things like Bluetooth and wireless apps, in theory, it should make it a lot easier, but often they're just disconnecting and they're missing those basic features like being able to choose where the focus points are, which to me just boggles my mind that there aren't better apps for this. And even if everything did work the way it should, it's still a really static process. You can't really move around or change your expression. Ultimately, you just gotta stand in one place and make sure that the focus is hitting. For the longest time, I've been thinking there's gotta be a better way to do this. A way to take self-portraits quickly and efficiently and allow you to have movement. I mean, surely the high-tech features that our mirrorless cameras have should allow us to do that. And then I started thinking about, what if you combine interval shooting, which is often used for time lapses, and the AI focus in order to just continue taking photos and keep focusing on the subject. Especially nowadays when our mirrorless cameras have AI features to detect when there is a human or where their eye is in order to nail that focus. Surely the AI focus can handle following someone and allowing for dynamic movements in your self-portraits. But then my next question was, how do you trigger the camera? Because I don't want to just take one photo and then have to run back to the camera to review it and then run back to my spot. I want to be able to take a whole bunch of shots all at once with movement, moving around, and just being dynamic, and then come back after the session to review all my photos. And then I realized that's where interval shooting or intervalometers can come into play. Typically, people use interval shooting or intervalometers to shoot time lapses because you can select how many photos you want to shoot at what intervals and for how long. Back in the day, people literally had this remote called an intervalometer that you would attach to your camera to do all these settings, but now most cameras have it built in called interval shooting. Using this same technique, I thought this would be perfect for shooting self-portraits. You can set the intervalometer to take photos every 1 or 2 seconds, up to 30 to 50 photos. That way you can move around, get really dynamic shots with the AI focus tracking you and making sure that the focus is hitting on each shot. And as well, you could take a whole bunch of photos and then come back and review the photos that you've taken. Now in theory, this all sounded really great, but the problem that I realized was that in Canon cameras, this would work out just fine. But for some reason with Sony cameras, if you have interval shooting mode on, it doesn't keep refocusing in between photos. Most likely Sony is assuming that people are using interval shooting for time lapses and not for self-portraits, meaning that people wouldn't want the camera to refocus in between every single photo because that could potentially ruin your time lapse. But for self-portraits, it's really important. So in order to do this, I literally had to go back and order myself an intervalometer, going back old school, to attach it to my Sony a7S III so that I could tell the camera to take a photo every 1 to 2 seconds and that it would refocus every single shot. So how do you set up your camera for this? On my Sony a7S III, the first thing I select is continuous AF. Then I choose the wide focus area so that it will detect the whole scene if I'm moving around with motion. And then I'm gonna make sure that human recognition and eye detection is on so that it's gonna focus on me because I'm the subject of these self-portraits. Then on the intervalometer, I'm gonna have it set to every 2 seconds, take a photo up to 30 photos. And then once it's taken 30 photos, I can come back and review the photos and then try out it again. Some last tips for your self-portrait session. Treat it like a portrait session of someone else. So change up the locations, change up the angles, try different focal lengths, have those wide, medium, and tight photos, and as well change expressions. Do some more serious looking photos, some laughing, bring some movement into the shot, and that way you're gonna get a variety of different portraits of yourself. Hopefully this helps you guys because for me, this has been seriously a game changer, especially for shooting self-portraits, but as well for thumbnails on my channel. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe. Appreciate it. Love to hear your comments in the comments section.